Well, the day is here. Welcome everyone to the Ed Collab gathering. It's hard to believe that way back in September, in our last gathering, we were just putting out the call for proposals. We let everyone know April 2nd was the big day, and now we've made it here. This is a day that is completely volunteer. Everyone that is presenting, that's running behind the scenes, that is sharing their education, love, and joy with all of you are here because they really want to be a part of your learning today and a part of our community of learners all together. I am so honored by this lineup that we have. A few things to know before we jump into our keynote this morning. The first is that everything is archived. So if your Wi-Fi goes out, if you suddenly have to leave, if your children need to be fed, as well they should, anything that happens, everything's archived. You can always come back later. I especially like that because after this morning's keynote, we have 4 sessions of simultaneous workshops. And I don't know about you, but when I attend conferences, I often want to be cloned and to appear in many different rooms all at the same time. And so with our Ed Collab gathering, you sort of kind of can do that. So you can attend one session, or I have been known to open up multiple windows and then just mute and unmute them, or you can always come back and watch anything you'd like later. We also not only are here to share great ideas with you, we also have an ongoing conversation all day long. So if you're on Twitter, well, first of all, if you're not, you should be, but if you're on Twitter, you can use hashtag the Ed Collab Gathering. It's all over all of our web pages. You'll see it across our websites on all of the sessions. Hashtag the Ed Collab Gathering is the way that you can tweet and talk with everyone who's attending today. In fact, if you wouldn't mind, if you're on Twitter right now, we'd love for you to say hello and maybe where you're connecting with us from. Every gathering, we have folks from all over the world. In fact, this morning, let me pull this up. In fact, this morning I already can say hi to. We have many friends tuning in the United States and Canada, Australia, Estonia, South Korea, Mexico, Netherlands, Macedonia, New Zealand, Serbia, and the list goes on and on. So hi from wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us at either 9 a.m. Eastern or possibly 9 p.m. Today is really a day of love and empowerment. There's many events going on in the world, many things that I know have a lot of us questioning what's happening, what's happened to humanity perhaps, or what's happening to our fellow citizens, or those of us that share this world together. Why are things challenging and confusing in politics and in the world and in education and in practically every other area of our lives? And one thing that I try to rely on whenever things feel really tough, whether it's tough in a big event in the world or it's tough in our classrooms, I try to remember that every time there's any sort of frustration or challenge or kind of bad that happens, there's always on the other side many more examples of good. Whenever a disaster strikes, people rush in to help. They don't run away, they run towards it. Whenever there's a challenge in a school building, people don't run away, they run towards it. No matter what's happening in our lives, in our communities, or in the world around us, I always come back to there's so much more love and so much more good than anything else. And today really feels like that to me. Today's a day where we're all here and you're all here to share that love that we have for this amazing profession and for the students that we serve. So just a couple of other announcements before I pass ourselves over, and let me make sure I have this running here. Sorry as I click on many things. So there's the hashtag again. As you're following along today, you can use hashtag the Ed Collab Gathering. All of our sessions and the full agenda is at our website. If you're on Twitter, you can also follow at the Ed Collab, and we will be sending out links to live videos. So if you have to drive away somewhere or you're at a baseball game, you have that. And as I mentioned, all sessions from today will be archived back on this site, and all sessions from any gathering we ever had are on youtube.com/the Ed Collab. So we hope that you'll join in our conversations today. Also keeping in mind that for every session, you can still use hashtag the EdCollab Gathering. You'll just then put a space, and after that space, you'll put the session number. So if you're attending workshop number 1 with Joellen McCarthy and Amy Ludwig Vandewater and friends, you just type that in and press 1. So here's the last point to make, is our adopted charity for the day. Every gathering, because this is a day that you just get to come, there's no registration. You aren't probably going out to grab coffee and lunch with a group of friends at the conference center. You're watching, possibly even in your PJs. Because this is a free day of learning, one thing we do at every gathering is we adopt a charity. And to adopt that charity, we ask our keynote. So in just a few minutes, we'll be introducing Smokey and Sara. But before they came on, I just wanted to share with you that their choice charity for today, the one that we'll be adopting, is Doctors Without Borders. And I know they'll speak a little bit more about that. Doctors Without Borders, as you know, is a charity that supports the work of medical physicians, nurses, and other medical aides around the world. They're the sorts of people that run into a crisis when it's needed. In addition to running into crises, Doctors Without Borders also supports at-home health and other issues for children and adults. So today, if you would normally go buy a coffee, or if you normally would pay a registration fee, or if you just are feeling inspired by the work of all of our amazing presenters this morning, we'd invite you, instead of paying us, to pay it forward. You can find a link to go directly to the Doctors Without Borders donation site right on our website. It's off to the side, and we also will be mentioning that and tweeting about it throughout the day. So if you feel inspired by what you see, and if you'd like to pay it forward, today's adopted charity is Doctors Without Borders. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to one of our presenters today, who will be introducing our friends Smokey and Sara. So Kristen Zemke is presenting later today with Katie Mutaris, and she is co-author of the book that I know you all have and you love and adore, Amplify. Kristen is a member of the Educator Collaborative and also is a good friend, and I'm so honored to have her here with us this morning. So Kristen, I'll pass it over to you, and Kristen will then introduce our keynote speakers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. Good morning, friends. Slow clap to get the day started. I'm so excited to learn from amazing colleagues and friends across the day, and I couldn't be more honored than to introduce our opening keynote session today, which will be a session with my pals, Smokey Daniels and Sara Ahmed. And I think the key word here, what you're going to hear for the next hour or so, is this resonating theme of joy. How do we bring joy and student choice into the classroom? How can we amplify what our kids know and are able to do? And how do we celebrate who our kids are in order to help them craft that vision for who they want to be? Smokey and Sara have been two of my mentors and great friends for the last decade. And anybody that knows me knows that when I start gathering some thinking, it starts in large format writing. And so I kind of created an anchor chart the other day thinking about Smokey and Sara and where our lives overlap and some of their specialties. Sara and I started teaching together in the Chicago Public Schools maybe about 10 years ago and really grew up together from baby teachers to now this point where we're continuing to learn and share with students as well as other educators around the world. Things that you need to know about Sara is that she is the author, co-author with Smoke of Upstanders, but Upstanders is not just a title of her book, it's a way that she lives, and she brings social justice and passion into all that she does. She guides students and teachers to uncover their identity as a means to think about who they are today, who they want to be tomorrow, and how they can impact the world. She's a big fan of the Chicago Bulls, lover of Papa Shot and McDonald's, and is currently on sabbatical investigating some of these bigger ideas of place in the world, identity and inquiry with kids. Smokey came into our life in Chicago Public Schools as he's working on his book Comprehension in collaboration with Stephanie Harvey. And if you don't know Smokey, you should. Trying not to drop anything, but here are a couple of the books that he's written. I'm sorry, they're very heavy, so I'm going to set them down. This is just a number of them, too. There's so many more. But Smokey's writing has really influenced who I am as a teacher, and his friendship has been that tie that binds and sort of that invisible thread that pulls you through, from late night texts to moments where I was writing crying on the floor. Smokey is, I think, the consummate cheerleader, and not just cheering for those that he knows, but cheers for teachers around the world and cheers for kids, and has this constant belief that what we can do today is better than what a lot of other people think, and an unwavering faith that this is the best time to be a teacher. Smokey, if you don't know, is a big fan of chilies. He likes spicy food and piñatas. He is many times that parent figure to so many people. I know that in addition to Marty and Nick, his biological children, Sara and I often consider ourselves to be his children as well, and I know other people want to be in that group as well. Christy Moraz texted me recently and was like, can I get adopted by Smokey too? Because anytime you're around him, you feel that love and that warmth. And I'm so excited for you guys to learn from them today. I can't wait to hear what they're working on now, and hope that whether face-to-face or online or through their books, they become mentors to you all as they have been to me. So Smokey and Sara, thanks for being here. We can't wait to learn from you.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, thank you so much. Kristen, I'm proud to be part of your Venn diagram. And if I am a parent figure, go to your room.
Thanks for that intro, Kristen. I haven't had McDonald's since June, so we can take that off the Venn diagram pretty soon.
I was going to show you guys around my studio a little bit here. I'm coming to you from Santa Fe, and I want to. If you were here, you could see that I'm a guy who moved here 10 years ago, and I fell for every Southwestern art stereotype there is in the entire world. Right beside me here, I have a gigantic Indian warrior. Long story. There's a Navajo rug over here, and back there, there's a buffalo skull on the wall. So all art forms. But as Kristen mentioned, one of our favorites in our family, we collect piñatas. And here's one I just got. Hey, Donnie, what up? Anyway, over to you, Sara.
He loves that. Good morning, everybody from New York City. I'm sitting on my floor in my apartment because there's nowhere else to sit if you've been in an apartment in New York. We're just thawing out here from the winter and regaining our vitamin D. So thank you to the Ed Collab for having us today, and for Chris for hosting us and having us do this keynote. We're so excited for this morning and all day, actually. There's great presenters and friends and mentors of ours that we're going to be with. We want to start just by thanking those of you who have already donated to our cause today, our charity. Doctors Without Borders is so important to us. There's an EIN number there on the screen that you guys can see, and I know Chris talked a little bit about it in the introduction. We just know that the work that they're doing, they're very busy right now, and that they're humanitarians in a way that, we read Peter Johnston's words and choice words about how he connects teachers to doctors, and that we research and reflect and respond. And so thank you for taking the time to do that today.
So some of the stuff we're going to talk about today does come from our books, which Kristen has already excessively promoted, so that's fine. But the themes of both of these books are really about comprehension, collaboration, inquiry, and kids doing research, having school driven more by kids' questions than by a mandated curriculum. But highlighting today, as Chris hinted at the beginning, and we always do, it's not only kids following their own questions and curiosity, that it's about helping to bring them to a place that comes quite naturally, where they don't just learn about their own world, but they reach out when they can and take action with humanity in mind.
And so we want to begin with kids today. We feel like that's the most natural place to start. They're the most important part of your curriculum. We begin with kids and we scaffold everything from there. And we really believe if that you invest in kids, that you'll get the greatest return in your work. Smoke and I will talk about this a little bit later as well, but we really want to capitalize on the fact that kids, lean in towards matters of significance if you listen.
So there are a series of pictures coming. We thought it would be good to start with the littlest ones. Among all the things this reminds us of is that the big ideas of life are of interest and sources of curiosity to learners of all ages, and particularly here we're reminded of the connection to the earth. These two guys I was working with, these are second graders, and shout out to Glenwood School in Greenfield, Wisconsin, and working there a while, and these guys were working on a self-directed inquiry on video games. And they confided to me that they said, if you watch video games too much, you could go crazy. I said, whoa, what does that look like? And then they showed me with their controllers there what crazy really looks like.
Thanks for dealing with all of our tech issues and being patient with us this morning as well. We also wanted to talk about, the fact that kids are just naturally social and collaborative. This is a big shout out to NIST School in Bangkok, Thailand. Hopefully some of you are up on your wild Saturday night listening to us right now. But these two boys, were doing some peer editing and talking about their writing and writing together and then publishing on their personal blogs about spring. And it was really great to be at that school with them this past winter. Those of you that know, Smoke, can we have the adolescents on the next slide?
Absolutely.
Those of you that are teachers or parents of budding tweens or adolescents know that, it takes a lot of humor and patience, and Smoke and I will argue a stunted frontal cortex and a very mature amygdala to be around these guys and learn from them. But, kids are social, as the next group of kids will show you. This is a soft start in my room in San Diego. When the kids would just come in and, you can tell, literally kick off their shoes. And, all these boys are reading together, and you can see how they're so proximate, right? And they spend this time together in the morning, and this is how they start their day.
And also this reminds us, and we see this in schools that focus on inquiry, it seems to come with a package that we want to make our classrooms look more like family rooms than industrial spaces.
This is a great school in Hyderabad, India, actually, where my father grew up. And these guys, some of them, when I was taking this photo, this is half the class of a kindergarten class, and they, some of them had never seen their own picture of themselves on a digital device before. So you can tell just in the curiosity in a lot of their eyes if you kind of do a close reading of the image. But they're also these guys are the original tablet owners here, if you look. These are pieces of slate with a little rubber coloring around with some chalk, and they're just dying to learn their ABC, so we had a really fun day. Some of you may be familiar with this little face. This is Mary Kate Lynch, and a daughter of my good friend Carrie, who has worked really hard to spread the message of choosing kind. This is Mary Kate's first year at Christ the King in Chicago. And Mary Kate really shows us the face of how diversity is different on all levels in school: race, religion, physical ability. She was born with Apert syndrome, and you guys can follow along with them on Twitter as well. Hang on, Smoke, sorry.
So I'm going to talk to you about, I had a wonderful day this week in a school called Eason School in west of Milwaukee, Iowa, near Des Moines, and was in this classroom, and the teacher had started the kids off setting them out on a self-driven inquiry in small groups. They chose their own topics, and I just love these kids grabbed this, and this is not a slate with the rubber edge, it's an actual iPad, and they ran to the window, and I think you can see the intensity with which they're launching into that inquiry. So a good reminder, we wanted to talk a little bit about curiosity today, and here's another child that shows us that kids come to us curious, And you know, maybe we're coming out of this age of standards, but we've been sort of felt like we've been living with standards-based reform for many, many years. And this, on the screen, you're seeing a list of the words that I've never seen mentioned in any standards document from the Common Core or any state. And maybe you agree, or maybe you recognize some, or maybe you feel some concern about this, as I do. But just to take the last one on the list, curiosity, I have hardly ever seen the word curiosity used, or the phenomenon built into any of the lessons that are being sold in the unit plans and so forth that are supposed to be core aligned. Most of them just plunge right into doing stuff to kids, and I don't really even talk about activating their curiosity. So this is super important because now we have tons of research on curiosity that's been coming out. And some fascinating findings. This researcher is Susan Engel. She's at Williams College. And she created the idea of curiosity episodes or curiosity sequences. And she studies mostly young children at home. So as they look at kids interacting around their home, talking about 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they identify curiosity episodes like when the kid picks something up and does something with it, or opens a drawer, opens a cabinet, rummages around, moves stuff around, or of course when they ask a question of a parent or a caregiver, and some of us can remember the stage when our kids, why? So there have been a couple big studies of that done. One of them showed that the average preschool kid, has 26 curiosity sequences per hour. And the other big study said it was more like 76. So there were some differences there. But basically what you had is you had young preschool kids, when they're at home, about every half a minute to a minute, they're doing something curious, right? So then they followed these kids to school, and what they found out was when the kids got to kindergarten, their number of curiosity episodes dropped to 1 per hour. Now, I know what you're all saying. Not in our kindergarten. Our kindergarten is filled with curiosity, and undoubtedly it is. And by the time the kids got to 5th grade, there were almost too few curiosity episodes to even count. Now, it's important to understand, let me show you the language that she uses so understand what this means. She says there's an astonishingly low rate of curiosity episodes in the schools we visited. Most children spend their whole school day without asking a single question or engaging in a sequence of behavior aimed at finding out something new. That's the critical difference. And as she says, this transition is like going from being an intrepid explorer to a well-behaved scholar. So there's been a lot of research on curiosity, Scientific American. We can go ahead, Sara. And I want to tell you about UC Davis, University of California, Davis is a place where a lot of this most promising brain research on curiosity is being done. And you look at the picture there, I don't know if you would want to volunteer for this experiment or not. I'm not so sure I would, but basically what they found out is that when we're curious, when we get curious about something, not only do we remember the information we encounter about it, we also remember all the stuff that happens around it, all the incidental stuff. So when we're curious, we're entering a frame of mind. When we're in that state, in that frame of mind, we hoover up everything that's going on around. So it's as if we have a curiosity switch in our brain that once it's activated, we can learn all the stuff around it. When I first read this research, I thought, man, if we could turn on kids' curiosity switch, we should do the multiplication tables right that second, lock that in and move on. So here's a couple kids. Sara could tell you about these kids, I think.
Oh, yeah, these are some of my 5th graders and my good friend Emily Wheeler at Harlem Village Academy is where I was earlier this fall. But this is just your standard density Halloween experiment, and they're fascinated and curious about their corn syrup and food coloring. That can go a long way in a 5th grade classroom. So they're just recording some observations.
So here's a few things we know about curiosity, and I'll go through these really fast because it sounds a little academic, but this is a summary of the recent curiosity research from NPR. So when we're in that frame of mind, like those kids looking at those tubes of liquids, we feel energized, we're invigorated, we're enthralled, we pay closer attention, we process information more efficiently, we connect old and new knowledge, We attend to deep structures, not just surfaces. Listen to this. We work harder and persist longer. Work harder and persist longer. And we bring more self-regulatory skills into play. So what this suggests, everybody's talking about grit. Kids need more grit, you know, so they can learn. But guess what? If you're curious, if the work is interesting, you don't need grit. Grit is something you need for toxic, noxious tasks where you have to hold your nose and get through. But when school is interesting, the self-regulation comes through curiosity. It doesn't have to come through coercion or by putting, you know, the trouble with grit, the trouble with this grit idea is it's seen as a deficiency in the child. Like if this kid just had more grit, then they would learn more. Well, if school was more interesting, they would learn more. Another way to frame that. So anyway, and there was a study that just came out in England confirming that grit as a character trait, especially having passion for long-term goals, adds little or nothing to the prediction of students' achievement in school. It's not significant. Anyhow.
Talking about grit.
So talking about curiosity, so then the next logical question is how do we evoke kids' curiosity, activate it, bring it into our classroom, and of course, as with everything else, we try to model first. We try to demonstrate our own curiosity first. So I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of mine, and then Sara's going to do hers. Mine will be quick. I'm a big fan and scholar of the work of James Bean. Some of you, maybe as old as me, might know Jim Bean, one of the founders of the middle school movement, wrote books on curriculum integration. He's got a beautiful book from Heinemann called A Reason to Teach. But when he's encouraging kids to notice what they're curious about, notice what their wonders are, he suggests that we list them in two columns. And one is little self-concerns, little me, little selfish me concerns, and then bigger worldwide concerns that other people are. So I know this. I'm worried about my knees wearing out. I saw a masked ferret at my window. I did identify that animal. I'm always looking for a cheaper drag. You know, these are like little petty questions. And then some of my bigger world questions, I'm concerned about the drought in the Southwest. It's got a little bit of me in it, but it's for all of us. The third one, you know, what international relief agencies are most trustworthy? Sara and I did a little inquiry in order to decide on Doctors Without Borders today. I'm pretty enthusiastic about defending the planet against an asteroid impact. If anybody wants to share that with me, I have vast hordes of information. Just tweet. So, Sara, let's go over to you. And I got a little homework to do on my slideshow. So why don't you start?
No problem. Thanks.
Curiosity.
Thanks for sharing those. I'm not in the asteroid group with you. I don't want to think about that. But I do it another way. I model it a different way with my kids. That's sort of evolved from the self and world questions. But we talk a lot about what's in our news. Like I'll address it that way. So things I'll say to the kids is like, you know, what's in my news today, and that could be my personal news. It could be news about the world. It could be news about my family. And I think that, you know, when we ask kids about their news, we open up the world to them, right? And we make it about them because kids are innately sort of in that self-centered, in a good way, in a positive way. You know, they think about themselves first, and that's how they make sense of the world around them. And so some things I'll say to them, you know, are currently, this is what I would be modeling is, you know, I'm nervous, I'm a little bit worried. I have friends in Brussels, you know, and the events that are happening in Iraq and Lahore in Pakistan and the way that they're covered in the media or not covered in the media is something that I'm wondering. So what resources can I share to raise awareness rather than Islamophobia? The refugee situation with Doctors Without Borders is actually, there's a great connection there because they've recently decided to pull out of major parts of Europe because of the way that the political ties are to the area. Someone in my family is dealing with type 2 diabetes, and as they're aging, I'm sort of wondering more about the long-term effects of what that will do and how fast that will come. Personally, something that I'm working on is wanting to become fluent in Spanish and learning another language. And so I have to think about my own learning style, what's the best way. Part of me just wants to move to a country for full immersion, which I know is the best way, but I think my parents would have something to say otherwise. And then
and me too, as your other parent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, and the final thing is, and this is important to me, and I think it's important to share these things with kids, is that it's March Madness. You can see there's a little net behind me, which is important, and that net has great significance to me and Smoke. But, it's about the basketball, but it's also about the, not-for-profit organization that NCAA is, even though they're making $11 billion off this tournament. And so there's questions that I want to know about, and I share those with the kids. Smoke, if you could go ahead, and we're going to ask you guys to do that now because you've been listening to us for a while. What are you wondering about? We'd love to know. This is your first step at modeling. Journal right now. Take a minute. You could journal, or you can tweet some of your wonders out to us. We can share them, or I know Chris is standing by too to share some tweets. So go ahead and share your news. Share burning questions that you have, issues that have come up for you. But go ahead and just take a minute and Smoke, and we can talk you through it a little bit too.
Yeah, I think that sometimes this is not something we often do, is really sit and think about and inventory all the things we're curious about or wondering about, but we actually usually have a lot going on. So it could be as simple as just a book you're reading, or a magazine you usually read, or a topic you're wondering about, something you saw in the news, some crazy question a kid brought up and it's kind of banging around in the back of your mind. Anytime we're researching a purchase, like buying a car, going on vacation, or setting up retirement, or any of these life events, means we're doing research, we're curious about it, and we're learning. Maybe not the happiest reminder, but I know in our family, every time someone's come up with an illness that we never heard of, you immediately become curious about that. It's not the itch you love to scratch necessarily, but you become very curious and you have to learn and make decisions. So anything that comes to mind, anything at all, feel free to tweet it out or just jot it in your journal. And while you do that, we'll give you some time to do that. We'll go ahead to some other ideas about how we activate kids' curiosity and our own in school.
Right. I think we've seen all across, we're lucky enough to go to tons of schools around the country, and we've seen really great examples of how you can create this climate of inquiry at your school. Big shout out to the teachers in Waukee. They opened their PD meetings. I walked into one of their libraries one day, and there was bean bags on the floor, and pillows, and couches and chairs and everything, and markers and chart paper, and it was like a really great way for them to just welcome their teachers into the learning space, get on the rug together and just sort of live that life through kids. Wonder journals are another great way. I've seen great examples of that even on Twitter, where students come in and just write about what they're wondering in the morning. That's how they start their day. It's so cool to me. You just come in wondering and writing and being curious, and so celebrating that. There's a little girl there in the picture, my great friend Carrie Calabresa at Burley School. Burley does an incredible job at inquiry from pre-K all the way up through 8th grade. And so they just start from their reading, and she has a little chart up, like a parking lot that we use in PD, and she'll say, what are you guys wondering about tornadoes as you read about them? And they go up and they use their best, they're doing drawings, they're doing their inventive creative spelling. And Smoke, you can talk a little bit about Wonder Walls. I know you had a good story.
Yeah, I was just looking at the tweets. There's some interesting tweets coming in here. Another shout out to Glenwood School near Milwaukee. When I was there this year for Back to School Night, which is the night when the parents bring their kids to school the evening before the first day of school, when you walk in there, every single classroom has a Wonder Wall outside, and the Wonder Wall says, at kids level, and it says, what do you want to learn in first grade this year? What do you want to learn in third grade? And so forth, all around the building. And then in the hallway, from floor to ceiling, there's a massive butcher paper Wonder Wall where all the parents are asked to stop by and write down some of the things that they're curious about. They hope they'll be learning this year. So a lot of these strategies are great for activating kids' curiosity.
I'm going to read a tweet. Smoke, do you have any that you want to read?
Go ahead.
Flying in, but Anna Osborne at post spring break is wondering more about famous memo for Walt Disney. That's curiosity. Kristen just tweeted a great picture, which I've now lost, but she's working to archive her curiosity in her journal.
Rachel wants to learn about how to implement soft starts in her classroom next year.
Boy, we could talk, Rachel. Now they're flying in, so I'm missing them. But thanks you guys for sharing. Continue sharing because we'll keep
Here's one who's, I won't mention the name, but here's someone who's looking for a teaching job.
Oh,
So
we
we're happy
might
to be
share
a
that
matching
inquiry.
service.
Yeah. I share that inquiry with somebody right now. So we're going to keep going, and we're going to share. Oh, no, we're both sharing. Smoke, why don't you come on? I'll share the slide. There you are. We're going to keep talking, and we're going to transition. We've talked a lot about kids and curiosity, and now we're just going to keep going, and we're going to apply it with you guys, and really talk about identity, something that's so close to our hearts in terms of kids, and an essential way to sort of get to know your kids, but also to build this empathy and compassion in your classroom.
So why don't you go ahead and talk about these two girls, Sara?
Absolutely. So this is Quinn and Elaine, and obviously, selfies are very important as adolescents, but also this is a great metaphor for them just, beginning to know who they are as human beings. And a lot of the beginning of the year, I spend, I know that we have to get to sort of the minutia of bell schedules and things like that, but I really just begin with them on the rug, and start talking to them about who they are. And building this sort of sense of community. So it grows into a bigger thing. We dedicate this time for kids to actually get to know who they are. And we do something called Identity Webs, which comes from an organization, Facing History in Ourselves, that I've been lucky enough to be a part of for a really long time. But they dedicate their work, in schools to helping students and teachers learn about different atrocities and bigotry and racism and hatred, so they can help stop it from happening again, which is what I think we really are in the business of doing in schools.
Yeah, sometimes people wonder why this identity work is so important, but as that quote says, it's really true that when people don't have a solid and positive self-identity, they're much more likely to discriminate against others. So this work is really foundational to what we do.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's layers of it. Identity literacy is so important, and kids need to be able to make meaning of who they are in this world, so they can make meaning of text. Make sense of the world around them and how they relate to it. So this is the tool that we do use. It's called an identity web, and it's a way of understanding yourself first, and then being able to use that as a lens to view history, literature, and communities and worlds around you.
So when we're making identity webs, these are some of the categories that we're usually drawing on. Getting at questions of who am I and how do I see myself?
Absolutely, and we want kids to really consider, the factors that inform their choices that they're making. So beginning sort of with this introspection, but also helping them understand, groups, nations, history, and literary figures around them. And so we're helping them to build relationships and understand themselves, but also break down some barriers and stereotypes. So we're going to show you a few kid examples.
Sara, I'm not seeing the slides. Are they going out okay?
They are going out okay.
Okay. So here's one from New Mexico. We're sort of start with older kids here. This is a teenager, and this is Chantal, and you can see it gives you an example of all the different things that are parts of her identity: camping, boyfriend, religion. But to me, as somebody who lives here, very interesting to me is that in every corner it says Roybal, 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 Roybal. So as like many other of these families whom we know, the family is the boundary of your life. And they're big families, and usually attached to an old Spanish land grant. Family is the huge boundary of identity. This is another one. Shout out to Glenwood School. When we were preparing this, we called up the coach there, Debbie Zafiro, the world's greatest literacy coach, and I said, we can't seem to find any first grade identity webs. And so she walked down the hall, and immediately, it just did instantaneously, they just took pencils and did them. So here's David, did an identity web. And first of all, he's a wonderologist, which you gotta love that, right? And he's a healthy eater, youngest kid, but he has a twin brother. It's serious, loves to write, loves games, a Cub Scout. But listen to this, he's a lover of facts. A lover of facts. Do you think he could run for president, maybe? Sure would be helpful. And a rescue of endangered animals, rescuer. Here's Mason. Nice shirt, dude. Mason's identity map. And he's got it all very linear here. He's got his favorite places on the left, which starts with Disney World, and his favorite things are math. Mason, awesome. And we know he's nice and funny and creative and helpful and caring.
Yeah, Smokey, one of the things I'm noticing while you're going through these, I've seen them a few times, but I keep seeing something new every time, is that the amount of conversations you can have with kids by looking at these. There's a few things, and Don Graves talks about seeing kids in, nouns and verbs, and actions, so you're not always seeing them as adjectives, right? That's the way we usually describe kids, and there's a danger in that. But seeing these, and going through them, I'm really thinking about the way that you can kneel down next to a kid and just start to really open up a conversation with them and get to know who they are. This is one of my favorites, especially because it says Girls Rock.
Kelsey. Nice list on the list on the left of things she loves, starting with dogs, and things she hates: bugs, cats, spiders, horror movies, garbage, when I'm too small to go on a ride, like at an amusement park. I learned a lot about her life there. Here's Tana.
Yeah, this is Tana. This is one of my middle school students, and I wanted to point out, while they are fun and they do seem like a great way to we all have those me projects at the beginning of the year, there's another layer to these. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, Smokey, you can or I can take my cursor actually and show you. She put that she's half Chinese. And part of this dialogue with them comes from my sort of modeling and that vulnerability of, where my parents came from, how I felt growing up. I felt, half this, and this sense of belonging, to a group, which humans so naturally do. And so Tana, talked about being half Chinese, and then branches off of that right here and says, I also feel half American, and she celebrates some Chinese traditions. Well, for Tana, that really informed a lot of not just my instruction, but also just my relationship with her and the way I could observe her and I do my kid watching in the world, and the way she responded to situations with kids, when you celebrate things like Chinese New Year and, about language and things that she used with kids and where she really identifies. So that's another great way, a lens to kids. So one way we start this is with a shared experience. So I said that first day they come onto the rug, I put all the locker codes and all that stuff aside. And we talk about these books. Thanks, Smoke. We talk about these books. Can you go to that next slide, Smokey, with the read-alouds? Thanks. So here's the great thing about read-alouds is that you can read them with any age. I have 8th graders on the rug sitting, knee to knee and listening. But there's a narrative built into these, and that's how humans respond. Thomas Newkirk talks about that in his book, Minds Made for Stories. And each of these books has a way that you can connect with the protagonist in some way, right? The 8th grader's favorite one is When Tango Makes Three, and that's about the penguins at the Central Park Zoo. So this is a great shout out for these authors as well. But they create this sort of like emotional aesthetic response where you can really find and dig into the identity of these characters and look at and see the choices that they made. The Librarian of Basra set in Iraq. It's a great story. Thanks, Smoke. So we're going to ask you guys, so when we do sit on the rug after we do these read-alouds, we're creating a web for the characters at the same time. And then this is how we first introduce ourselves to the kids. And that first moment of modeling and vulnerability where you can sort of open up, to the kids and give them this safe space where you can talk about yourself. And they can talk about themselves. So we're going to ask you guys to do something right now for us. If you don't mind, you can break out your pen and paper or your digital device, whatever you happen to be drawing on. We'll do a little drawing this morning. Smokey's going to model, actually, fingers crossed that all this tech works, on the dot camera for you on how he does an identity web or how we would share that with kids. And I will keep the ingredients up here, but we're really hoping that you can work with us to do that. And Smoke will get his dot camera started.
It's coming.
And I go ahead and share the slide.
It's going to work. We have faith.
We have faith.
There it is, right?
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Miracle. It's a tech miracle.
We've had some generational coaching going on for the last year.
So I'm going to start doing a little identity web of my own here, and I'll talk a little bit, sort of sub-vocalize, like I think aloud. So, but you guys be working on yours, and don't let me distract you. Pull your earphones out if you don't like what I'm doing. So Smokey, that we always put your name in the middle. And then sometimes we put, so my real name is Harvey, and there's a story there about 6, like I would have been Harvey the 7th. No money, just a beat up silver cup. But anyway, so let me see, what are some parts of my identity? I guess people I love, so we'll put a little heart here. And there might not be room, but we'll try. So Elaine, my wife, Marnie, daughter, Nick, son, Marnie and Don is her boyfriend, Tara is Nick's wife, my sisters, Lee and Terry, I'll just abbreviate there, and then we have millions of cousins and other relatives. So let's see, what else can I tell you about my life move? Let's see, I grew up in Minnesota, so there's a little state of Minnesota for you, slightly distorted. And let's see, then so that's Minnesota. Then I moved to Illinois. It's kind of like that. I won't color that in. Then we moved to New Mexico. We live in New Mexico now. So that's New Mexico. And one of the things I really love about my life is that I've been able to go to 49 states. And I've worked with kids and teachers in 49 states. And except one, the one I haven't been to yet. I know I have a map of America right beside me. I'll see if I can draw it. See if you can figure out what state this is. It's Idaho. So, calling Idaho if anybody needs a workshop in Idaho. So
I think you just got a job. Smoke, I'm going to talk over you just for the sake of time while you're reading, while you're continuing to do this. We would love if you guys are doing your drawings at home, if you could tweet them out. It'd be so fun to see. Also, the way Smokey is modeling right now, which I'm sure some of you are releasing to TMZ as his personal life is being shared live. You know, one of the things that I was about to do, which I had to hold back from, was shout out loud and say, what is the state that you have not been to, right? Which is naturally what kids do. So this is a great opportunity while you're drawing and while you're sketching, and I love that Smoke is modeling both the visual piece of this and also using the written language. But the kids shout out because they get so excited and they start to find these connections. And so you can sort of hone that in by saying, you know, who has connections to me, or they'll tell you, right? And so you have them start doing their identity web right there on the rug with you as you're modeling yours. Well, there are those chilies that Kristen was talking about.
Right.
I know at first I thought she meant the food chain, and I wondered. But, you know, having kids ask two questions, or excuse me, make two connections and then ask one question or two questions is really important. And it also opens up that first time that you start to teach them how to ask questions. I think it's really important that we're always saying, you know, get kids to ask questions, have kids be curious, because they already naturally are. It's sort of in our modeling, though, how we teach them to ask questions. And that's a really important piece that we miss. So Smoke, you're going to keep going, I see.
I can stop.
No, talk to us a little bit about what you did.
Well, I did, you know, New Mexico is the only state, you know, every state has a state flower or a state mineral or something. We're the only state that has a state question. The state question is red or green. What kind of chilies do you want on your food? And pretty much goes on every food. So you have to, you know, and if you want both, of course, then you say Christmas. That's the correct answer to your server. So I did some stuff about boats. I love boats. That's my big hobby, and we love kayaking and canoeing and sailing and noisy water skiing and all that stuff in the summer. So I really love that. And I've just made a list of the schools that I've taught in, where I started out teaching Tule, Clemente, Westinghouse, Lake Forest High School. Some of you know we wrote a book about this. We started a school in Chicago called Best Practice High School. So now I'm revealing this part of my identity that I'm a recovering high school teacher. And it's way more than a 12-step program, I'll tell you.
Thanks, Smoke.
Yeah. So
all right,
that's
so
enough, right?
we're gonna have you come back so we can keep talking, because our keynote is actually 2.5 hours long, but Chris told us we only have an hour, so we could talk forever about this. So one of the ways that you can do this, you know, once you make that shared experience and that connection, is that you can move right into literature. And Smoke, you can talk a little bit about Katniss.
Yeah, this is a shout out to Federal Hocking Schools, which is in Appalachia in far southeastern Ohio, and working with these kids who just finished reading The Hunger Games, and the teacher very appropriately used identity webs as a way for them to solidify their understanding of the character of Katniss. So they did their own first, and then they did one for the character. And actually, then after that, they loved it so much they wanted to pick another character in the book and make an identity web for them also.
I'm just going to note again how you can. This opens up conversation and dialogue for kids and for teachers. So I am going to give me one second.
I'm going to switch this over to you, Sara.
Yeah, absolutely. Smokey, if you could go all the way to. I'm going to come back on. Sorry,
Okay.
One tech issue, guys. If you could go all the way past the mini inquiries.
Yep.
Up to mini inquiries, thanks. So there's lots of different ways to do inquiry. Once you start with identity, it's sort of the beginning of inquiry. You can begin with mini inquiries where you're just honoring the kids' questions. There's curricular inquiries where you start to look at units that you're covering in school. We could share a couple. The kids have asked about Cheetos.
Oh, you want me to?
Asked about sneezing. And then there's this other piece where we're going to go to the world question, Smoke.
That's what I was, okay.
Thank you. So there's this other piece, too, that we really talk about in terms of identity. There's a social action piece. When the world hands you a curriculum, what do you do? And I think more and more that's happening in today's world. And so we're faced with lots of questions that the kids come in with. Thanks, Smoke. Go ahead and keep going past that slide. But when the world hands us this curriculum, we're looking at images of Kenya, of Mali, of things that happen, Black Lives Matter, of immigrants and migrants in Paris. We're inundated with this 24/7 reporting. And with that 24/7 reporting comes sort of this numbness and almost a slippery slope to being really desensitized. But the important piece here is that the kids still come in wondering what this is. But they don't see images like this necessarily when you're reporting, right? If you're doing a See, Think, Wonder, you guys are looking at this asking maybe what this is, right? Where this is. But, that slide, Smoke, can you just go back to that photo,
Yeah.
right? So when you see reporting, you see images of, graves and bombs and things being, destroyed, but you don't see something like this, which is in Syria, right? This is a World UNESCO Heritage Site in Syria that's now sort of been taken back by the government. It's a gorgeous place, and so we really have to be careful about the narrative that we're sharing with kids. So the next slide will show you, I want you to just look at this and think about the connections that you might have to these photos. What do all these kids have in common? Some of you might be able to connect with the students or with the kids in this photo. Some of your students might be able to identify with the kids in these photos. And we're going to go quickly through this, but one of the things that, the most important thing here is that they're all Syrian refugees. And that's not the image that we see all the time when we look at Syrian refugees. Or when we hear narrative about Syrian refugees, not being invited into our country, or that we want to begin patrolling, Muslim neighborhoods, or that we need a national database. When I look at those spaces, I don't think that I need to patrol their neighborhoods and their homes. And I think, at the bottom, we have this really great fact about, Smoke, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, well, all the fear that's been ginned up about refugees, as it says there, we've taken in 785,000 refugees since 9/11, and only 3 have been arrested for anything related to terrorism.
Right.
Sara, I think we have like a minute or two.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tell me what slides to advance.
Just go to the next slide, that's fine. So, my kids came in talking about Syria, and Smoke, you can just keep going and I'll just tell the story. So my kids came in talking about Syria, and they're worried about it. And so you have to humanize these situations, and including the victims for the kids. And so we found a foundation. It's all in Upstanders. We created a resource on Edmodo. The kids decided to make bracelets for Syrian refugees, not just as a fundraiser, but also we sent a group of bracelets, or a set of bracelets, over to a refugee camp in Turkey. We made a YouTube video, and that, because this work is so contagious, that video went viral, went out to a school in Chicago. And then we connected with that school in Chicago, who ended up raising about $3,000 more than we did. But Carmel Catholic, go you guys! And this is the Padlet that we created. So to wrap up, we really just want to talk to you guys. We really wanted to talk today about the importance of knowing your students, knowing their story. Smokey can come back on with me so we can say goodbye. Knowing their passions and their wonders, and then sharing and modeling yours. We think that if you invest in kids, they'll show you their best selves every day. We want to thank you guys for being here today. Thank you so much for listening and for keeping up with our tech issues. And we're so excited to see the rest of you speak today. There's so many great people. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We're looking forward to the rest of the day.
Thanks to both of you. This was really, truly, here I'm trying to pop myself back on the screen here. Here I come. Here I am.
Yeah.
I have to say that a perfect start to the day, and the thing that gives me the warm fuzzies during all of this, in addition to your incredible gifts that you're sharing with us and your warmth and care for education, is if you follow the hashtag right now, so many people are sharing the identity webs that they just made with you right now.
Yeah.
So those of you that know me know that I'm an easy crier, so I'm kind of sitting back here like trying to hold back emotion of just how amazing this feels. And especially what's so great is as you're talking about humanity and the ways that we can see the world for what it truly is, people all over the world right now are sharing their webs and their stories. So thank you, Smokey. Thank you, Sara. I have to say back here are basically all of their books. Here's Upstanders. If you don't have it, you want it yourself. Just to have you here starting the day for us means so much to me personally, and I know means so much to all of us. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. So much fun this morning.
Yeah, really.
So I just want to preview the sessions that we have coming up because, as Sara was mentioning, there are so many, and they're amazing. If you're joining us from a YouTube stream and you haven't visited our website yet, you can see the entire agenda for today at gathering.theeducatorcollaborative.com. We also are tweeting through our own handle at the EdCollab all of the links to videos directly, so if you can't make it to a page, you can make it to a video as well. We have 4 sessions today. Session 1 is jam-packed with amazing workshops. So here's the quick preview. You'll then have 15 minutes. We start at the top of the hour. You have about 15 minutes to make your decisions of where you'd like to go. So workshop 1 is Joellen McCarthy from the EdCollab is with, here's the problem, guys. I'm going to tell you these, and I want to see all of them all at the same time, all right now, but all right, let's try it. Joellen McCarthy from the EdCollab is joining an amazing group of poets, Amy Ludwig van de Water, whose new book I have behind me here, Janet Wong, Alan Katz, and Kim Doyle will be speaking about Poetry Love in Workshop 1. Poetry 2, see, again, okay, well, here we go. Poetry Workshop 2, which I also need to see live, is Rebecca Odell and Allison Marchetti talking about notebook time, bringing discovery and play back into the writing classroom, and I believe and hope they'll be sharing ideas from their newest book together. In Workshop 3, Chantal Francois, our EdCollab friend, is working with one of her colleagues, Kim Kelly, to talk about empowering readers through agency and metacognition. In Workshop 4, our own Heather Rocco, who, by the way, is presenting and then running to New Jersey to, she's being awarded with a, she'll tell you the exact title, but it's like the New Jersey State Education Leader of the Year or some wonderful title like that. So Heather will be presenting at the top of the hour and then running off to accept an award. And she's presenting today with a team of her colleagues from the district that she is a supervisor in. Jen, Kristen, Christina, and Cindy will all be sharing ways that they in secondary have developed an independent reading program. And then Workshop 5, Deanna DaCosta and Demik Palladino, great friends of ours here at the EdCollab, will be presenting on, I love this title, Future Ready Elementary Classrooms, Critical Thinking, Global Perspectives, and Informed Action. If you notice, we also have grade level ranges. It doesn't mean that you can't attend something that's outside of your grade level. It's just the range that the presenters are really thinking inside of. And then lastly, just a reminder, our adopted charity for today is Doctors Without Borders. If you were inspired by this morning's keynote as much as I am, and I think you were. I can see on Twitter that you were. But if you feel inspired by Smokey and Sara's message this morning, and if you want to pay forward the great learning that you're experiencing today, it would mean so, so much to me personally, I know to them, and to our entire organization if instead of paying for coffee or paying for registration to us, you pay it forward to our adopted charity, Doctors Without Borders. Lastly, in the background, we have an amazing tech team, and if you go to our website, you'll actually see a link to all of our friends that helped support today. Ryan Dunbar helped to run some practice sessions with Smokey and Sara, which we've been voxing in the background, the whole tech team, and just saying what an awesome job he did supporting tech as well. Sara sending a message to me, thank you, Ryan. All of the tech team is also volunteering their time. They're all educators. We would love if you would visit that page at some point today. Just see who they are, and you can tweet them, send them a bit of thanks. A member of our tech team, Lauren, pointed out to us that today is also Autism Awareness Day, and it's launching Autism Awareness Month. So a number of us here on the tech team are wearing blue today in support of that incredible cause. I think about the people and families that I love that have children on the spectrum and that are advocating for their kids and for autism awareness in general. So I'm happy to join in with some blue today, and we'd love for you to look more into Autism Awareness Month and research that yourselves too. So lastly, session 10, or workshop 10, is a pre-recorded, it's 7.5 minutes long, a little, here's what we're doing next year with the Ed Collab. So at any point today that if you have some downtime between sessions and you'd like to hear about our upcoming offerings or get to know us a bit more, you can go to that session. The video is already up. One teaser is we've already announced there our lineup for our study series next year. It's 12 online sessions. It's been totally fun this year, and I'm really excited about the people that will be presenting with us. So if I grabbed you with that at any point today, you can head over to it's workshop 10 in session, I believe it's 3 or maybe it's 2, and there you can just watch a brief video, or you can watch it later where I'm sharing some of our work and ways that you can work with us in the coming year. All right, everyone. Take a quick break, grab a snack, grab something to drink, because we have a full, exciting day ahead of us. So we'll be logging out here and head back to our webpage, click on the workshop you'd like to attend, and then boom, you're there. Or if you're like me, you will open many workshops and try to watch them all. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thanks again to Smokey and Sara. Enjoy the rest of your Ed Collab gathering day.